My sister faked a baby to steal my husband. She didn't know I owned everything. Having you here listening to me means a lot. Watch until the end and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm really curious to see how far my story is reaching. I never thought I'd find out my sister was pretending to be pregnant with my husband's child through a text message. But that's exactly how it happened on that cold Tuesday morning. My name is Rebecca. I'm 25 years old, and until that moment, I thought I had a normal life with a loving husband and a supportive family. Eric and I had been married for 3 years. He was handsome, successful, and I believed he loved me as much as I loved him. My sister Jessica was 2 years older than me, always the favorite, always the one who got everything she wanted. That morning started like any other. Eric had already left for work, and I was getting ready when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He'd forgotten it, which wasn't like him at all. When I picked it up to check if it was important, a message flashed across the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Our baby is going to be so beautiful. I love you." It was from Jessica. My hands trembled as I unlocked his phone. I know it was wrong, but something inside me needed to know the truth. As I scrolled through their messages, my entire world crumbled around me. Hundreds of texts, spanning back months. Plans, declarations of love, and the most painful of all, detailed discussions about Jessica's fake pregnancy. "Mom and Dad are so excited about the baby," one message read. "Rebecca is clueless. She actually bought me prenatal vitamins yesterday." As I sat there on the edge of my bed, I felt a strange calm wash over me. It wasn't rage or sadness. It was shock, pure and raw. My sister, who I'd supported through every life crisis. My husband, who had promised to love me forever. Both betraying me in the cruelest way possible. I should have confronted them immediately. That's what people do in movies, right? The scorned wife screams and throws things. But instead, I carefully placed Eric's phone back on the nightstand, exactly where he had left it. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up until there was nothing left in my stomach. That evening, I pretended nothing was wrong. I smiled through dinner with Eric, listening to him talk about his day, watching the way his eyes avoided mine when he mentioned having lunch with colleagues. I nodded when he said he had a late meeting and wouldn't be home until after midnight. I wanted to see how far they would take this lie. Later that night, I drove to Jessica's apartment building and waited in my car. At 8:30, Eric's car pulled into the parking lot. I watched him walk to her door with a bouquet of lilies, my favorite flowers. I followed them the next day too. They met at a coffee shop, where Jessica dramatically rubbed her still flat stomach, beaming as an elderly woman congratulated her. Eric placed his hand over hers, smiling with pride at a child that didn't exist. 3 days after discovering the affair, I heard them with my own ears. I had decided to surprise Jessica for lunch, knowing Eric would be there. I stood outside her apartment door, keys in hand. She had given me a spare key years ago when she needed someone to water her plants. "The doctor's appointment is next week," I heard Jessica say. "We'll have to fake the ultrasound somehow." "Are you sure this is the only way?" Eric asked, his voice strained. "I feel awful about Rebecca." Jessica laughed, a sound I used to love, but now made my blood run cold. "It's the perfect plan. She'll give us the divorce, thinking you're doing the honorable thing by being with the mother of your child. And when I have a convenient miscarriage in a few months, it'll be too late for her to change her mind." "You're incredible," Eric said. "That's why I love you more than I ever loved her." I didn't confront them then either. I simply turned around and walked away, the weight of their betrayal crushing me with each step. I had always been the responsible one, the dependable one, while Jessica was the free spirit everyone adored. Now she wanted my life too, and she was willing to fabricate a pregnancy to get it. That night, as I lay awake beside my sleeping husband, I made a decision. I would not cry. I would not scream. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Because what neither of them knew, what no one in my family knew, was that I wasn't just Eric's devoted wife. I was Rebecca Hartley, owner of Hartley Design Enterprises, a company I had inherited from my grandmother. The house we lived in, the cars we drove, the lifestyle Eric had grown so accustomed to, It all belonged to me. And soon they would both discover exactly what they were about to lose. 2 weeks passed, and the performance they were putting on became more elaborate. Jessica had announced her pregnancy to the entire family, conveniently explaining that she was already 3 months along. Just enough time to claim Eric was the father, but not so much that anyone would question her still flat stomach. I watched it all unfold like I was observing a play, detached yet alert to every detail. I documented everything, screenshots of their messages, recordings of their conversations when possible, dates and times of their meetings. Not for revenge, but for the truth. The truth I would eventually need to face my family with. My mother called me that Friday morning, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Rebecca, honey, we're having a special dinner tonight to celebrate Jessica's news. Can you believe it? I'm going to be a grandmother." I closed my eyes, feeling a sharp pain behind my eyelids. "Yes, Mom. It's wonderful." "I know this must be a bit hard for you," she said, her voice dropping to that sympathetic tone she used when discussing my shortcomings. "You and Eric have been trying for a while, haven't you?" We hadn't. We had actually decided to wait a few more years before having children. But Jessica had spun her own narrative, and my mother had eagerly accepted it. "We'll be there," I said simply. That night, I sat at my parents' dining table, watching Jessica hold court. She wore a flowing top that strategically draped over her stomach, creating the illusion of a small bump. My father couldn't stop grinning. My mother kept touching Jessica's arm, her eyes misty with joy. Eric sat beside Jessica, not next to me, his wife. He played his part well, the proud father-to-be, accepting congratulations with practiced humility. "When did you two? I mean, how did this happen?" my Aunt Susan asked, confusion evident in her furrowed brow. She was the only one who seemed to find the situation strange. Jessica laughed, that melodic laugh that everyone always adored. "Well, Eric and I have always been close, you know. One night, we just connected. It was meant to be." She didn't even try to hide it. My husband, sitting right beside her, nodding along. And my family, except for Aunt Susan, smiling approvingly. "Rebecca," my mother said suddenly, all eyes turning to me. "You've been so quiet. Are you feeling all right?" I looked around the table, at these people who were supposed to love me, now waiting for my reaction, some with concern, others with barely concealed anticipation for a breakdown. "I'm just taking it all in," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "It's not every day you find out your sister is having your husband's baby." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jessica shifted in her seat. Eric stared at his plate. "Well," my father finally said, clearing his throat, "the important thing is that we're going to have a new addition to the family. That's something to celebrate, right?" And just like that, they moved on. My feelings, my marriage, my betrayal, all swept under the rug in favor of Jessica's fabricated joy. After dinner, I stepped outside onto the porch, needing air that wasn't thick with lies. Aunt Susan followed me. "This isn't right," she said quietly, standing beside me. "Something's off about this whole situation." I looked at her, this woman who had always seen through Jessica's dramatics. "You think? Are you okay, Rebecca? Really okay?" I considered telling her everything. The text messages, the conversations I'd overheard, the calculated plan to steal my husband. But what would be the point? No one would believe me over Jessica. They never had. "I'm handling it," I said instead. Back home that night, Eric tried to talk to me for the first time in weeks about our situation. "Becca," he said, using the nickname I once loved. "We need to discuss what's happening." I looked at him, this man I thought I knew. "What's happening, Eric? Why don't you tell me?" He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Jessica and we didn't plan for this. The baby changes everything." "The baby," I repeated, keeping my voice even. "Right. I'm trying to do the honorable thing here." I almost laughed. Honorable? There was nothing honorable about him or what he was doing. "And what's the honorable thing exactly?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "I think we need to consider separating. Jessica needs me. The baby needs me." I stared at him, This stranger wearing my husband's face.
I could have exposed them right then.
I could have shown him all the evidence I had collected. I could have told him that I knew there was no baby. Instead, I said, I need some time to think about everything. Relief flooded his features. He thought I was giving in, making it easy for him. Little did he know I was just setting the stage for what was to come. That night, I sat in my home office, the one room Eric never entered, and looked through the documents my grandmother had left me. Property deeds, business contracts, investment portfolios. Everything that made up Hartley Design Enterprises, the company I had been quietly running for the past 2 years. My grandmother had been my savior. When everyone else saw Jessica as the star, she had seen my potential. She had taught me everything about business, about standing on my own, about building something that no one could take away from me. Never tell them, she had advised before she passed. Let them underestimate you. It's the best advantage you can have. I had followed her advice, letting everyone believe I had a modest job at a local design firm, while in reality, I was managing a multi-million-dollar company from behind the scenes. As I reviewed the documents, I felt a strange sense of calm. Eric and Jessica thought they were orchestrating the perfect betrayal. But in their arrogance, they had overlooked one crucial detail. Everything they enjoyed, the house, the lifestyle, even the car Eric drove to his secret meetings with my sister, it all belonged to me. And soon, very soon, they would both lose everything. While Jessica continued her performance as the glowing mother-to-be, I immersed myself in work. Hartley Design Enterprises had been my sanctuary long before my personal life imploded. My grandmother had built the company from nothing, transforming her eye for design into one of the most respected interior design firms in the Northeast. When she passed away 2 years ago, she left everything to me, her only grandchild, who truly understood her vision. Rebecca, your sister would spend it all in a year, she had told me during one of our final conversations. Your parents would try to control it, and no husband should ever have that kind of power over you. I had taken her words to heart, keeping the true extent of my inheritance hidden from everyone, including Eric. As far as they knew, Grandma had left me some money and a small business that I was trying to keep afloat. The reality was vastly different. That Monday morning, I drove to our headquarters, a renovated warehouse in the arts district that housed our design studio, offices, and showroom. To the outside world, I was just an employee. Only 5 people in the entire company knew I was the owner. "Morning, Ms. Hartley," said Marcus, our head of operations and one of the trusted few. The Milan client loved the concept designs. They want to move forward with the full project. I nodded, feeling a small spark of satisfaction amid my personal chaos. That's a 7-figure contract.
Good work.
It was your design they fell in love with, he reminded me, following me into my office. Once the door closed, his professional demeanor shifted. "Rebecca, you look exhausted. Is everything okay?" I considered lying, maintaining the facade I'd perfected over the years. Instead, I said, "Eric is having an affair with my sister. She's pretending to be pregnant with his child." Marcus's jaw dropped.
What?
That's diabolical. It gets worse. My family is celebrating them, acting like this is some beautiful love story rather than a complete betrayal. He shook his head, disgusted. "What are you going to do?" I turned to my computer, pulling up a file. "I've already started."
Take a look at this.
On the screen was a comprehensive inventory of everything I owned, the house Eric and I lived in, both our cars, our vacation property in Vermont, the substantial investment portfolio, and of course, the company. All in my name only. "Eric has no idea about any of this?" Marcus asked. "He thinks the house is ours jointly. He believes his car was purchased with our money. He has no clue about the vacation property or the investments." I leaned back in my chair. The prenup he signed was ironclad, but it was based on what he thought I owned, which was a fraction of the reality. Marcus whistled low. "So, when you finally confront them, they'll lose everything they thought they were entitled to." I closed the file, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. Jessica's fake pregnancy needs to unravel first. The next few weeks were a strange double life. At work, I was the confident, capable CEO, closing deals and growing the business my grandmother had entrusted to me. At home, I was the seemingly oblivious wife, watching my husband pull away, making excuses for late nights and missed dinners. Jessica's performance grew more elaborate. She started wearing maternity clothes despite barely showing. She created a baby registry. She posted ultrasound images on social media. Images I later discovered were purchased from a website that sold fake ultrasound photos. The family rallied around her. My mother took her shopping for baby furniture, which Eric paid for using the credit card connected to my hidden accounts. My father helped them look at larger apartments, assuming they would need the space. No one seemed concerned about where I would live after the inevitable divorce. One evening, as I reviewed the company's quarterly reports in my home office, I heard Eric on the phone in the hallway. "I know, Jess, I know," he whispered. "But I can't just leave her with nothing. She doesn't deserve that." I held my breath, listening. "The divorce will be finalized before the baby comes," he continued. "We'll figure out the financial stuff. Rebecca doesn't even know what we have. She's never handled the money." I nearly laughed out loud. Eric had always insisted on managing our finances, meaning he enjoyed spending my money while keeping me in the dark. Little did he know, I reviewed every transaction, tracking his spending patterns, watching as more and more went toward gifts for Jessica. "I promise we'll be together before the baby is born," he said before hanging up. Just a few more weeks of the charade. A charade indeed, but not the one he thought. That night, I made 2 important calls. First to my lawyer, verifying that everything was in place for what I was planning. Then to my most trusted employee at the company. "Madison," I said when she answered. "I need you to move forward with Project Disclosure. It's time." Project Disclosure was the contingency plan I'd created after my grandmother died, a strategy to reveal my ownership of the company should it ever become necessary. We had prepared everything: press releases, financial statements, a complete rebranding that would put my name front and center. As I hung up, I felt strangely calm. For weeks, I had been methodically documenting their deception while they believed I was clueless. Now, I was ready to reveal my own secret. The empire I had built in silence was about to come to light, and when it did, Eric and Jessica would realize too late that they had underestimated the wrong woman. It happened sooner than I expected. Just 3 days after I initiated Project Disclosure, Jessica called a family meeting at my parents' house. According to my mother, she had important news about the baby. I knew what was coming. That evening, I arrived last, finding everyone already gathered in the living room. Jessica sat in the center of the sofa, her face dramatically downcast, with Eric hovering protectively beside her. My parents looked concerned, exchanging worried glances. "Rebecca," my mother said with surprise. "We weren't sure you'd come." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, taking a seat across from Jessica. "What's this important news?" Jessica dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though I noticed they were completely dry. I lost the baby," she announced, her voice quivering with practiced grief. My mother gasped, rushing to embrace her. My father looked stricken, awkwardly patting Jessica's shoulder. Eric stood silently, his expression a mix of relief and feigned sadness. "The doctor said these things just happen sometimes," Jessica continued. "There was nothing I could have done to prevent it." "Oh, sweetheart," my mother cooed. "We're so sorry. This must be devastating for you both." I watched the performance, noting how none of them even glanced my way. They were so consumed by Jessica's drama that they'd forgotten I was in the room, the wife whose husband had supposedly impregnated her sister. "When did this happen?" I asked quietly. Jessica looked up, seeming startled by my question. 2 days ago." I didn't want to tell anyone right away." "That's strange," I said, keeping my voice even. "Considering you were never pregnant to begin with." The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. "Rebecca," my mother scolded. "How could you say something so cruel at a time like this?" "It's not cruel, Mom. It's the truth." I looked directly at Jessica. There was never any baby. This whole pregnancy was a lie to steal Eric from me. Jessica's face flushed with anger. "How dare you? I just lost my child, and you're accusing me of lying?" Stop it, Jessica. The game is over. I turned to my stunned family. She faked the pregnancy to manipulate Eric into leaving me. They've been having an affair for months. Rebecca, that's enough, my father said sternly. Your sister is grieving. Eric finally spoke, his voice dripping with condescension. I think Rebecca is having trouble accepting reality. Jessica and I never planned for this to happen, but we fell in love. The baby may be gone, but our feelings aren't. I almost admired his commitment to the lie, even now. Eric, I said calmly, we both know there was never any baby. Jessica bought fake ultrasound pictures online. She's been wearing pregnancy padding. The whole thing was a scheme, so you two wouldn't look like the villains when you got together. Jessica stood up, her face contorted with rage. You've always been jealous of me. Even now, when I've lost everything, you can't let me have one moment of sympathy. My mother moved to comfort her while shooting me a withering glare. Rebecca, I think you should leave if you can't be supportive. I looked around the room, at these people who had chosen to believe a convenient lie rather than an uncomfortable truth. My own family, siding with the two people who had betrayed me most cruelly. Fine, I said, rising from my seat. But first, Eric, I think we should discuss our divorce. He had the audacity to look relieved. I think that's best. I promise to be fair about our assets. That's thoughtful, I replied with a smile that made him shift uncomfortably. When would you like to move out of my house? Eric frowned. Your house? We bought that house together.
No, Eric.
I bought that house. My name is the only one on the deed. He laughed nervously. That's not possible. I would have known. Just like you know about the car you drive? The one that's registered solely in my name? Or the credit cards you use to buy Jessica gifts? The ones connected to my personal accounts. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you have no idea who you married, I said. Or what you're about to lose. Jessica stepped forward, her grief act completely abandoned. Stop trying to scare him. Everyone knows you work at that small design firm. You couldn't afford a house on your own. I don't work at a design firm, Jessica. I own Hartley Design Enterprises. The entire company. My grandmother left it to me when she died. My father's eyebrows shot up. Margaret's company? But that's worth millions. I finished for him. Yes, it is. And it's all mine. The house, the cars, the vacation property in Vermont that Eric doesn't even know about. Everything is in my name only. Eric looked like he might be sick. You're lying.
There's no way you've hidden something like that.
You never bothered to look, I replied. You were too busy sleeping with my sister and spending my money to notice what was right in front of you. My mother finally found her voice. Rebecca, if this is true, why wouldn't you have told us? Because Grandma knew exactly what would happen if I did. I looked around at their shocked faces. She knew Jessica would try to take it. She knew you would try to control it. And she knew that any man I married should never have that kind of power over me. She was right about all of it. I turned to Eric. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. The car stays when you go. And in case you're wondering, the prenuptial agreement you signed is ironclad. Jessica's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You can't do this. You can't just throw him out. Actually, I can. And I am. I walked to the door, then paused to look back at them. Oh, and Jessica? Don't bother with any more fake pregnancies. The next time you try to take something that belongs to me, you'll lose a lot more than your dignity. As I closed the door behind me, I heard my mother call my name. But for once, I didn't turn back. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need Eric's love or Jessica's friendship. For the first time in my life, I was standing on my own terms, and it felt like freedom. The days following my confrontation with my family were surprisingly peaceful. I threw myself into work, finalizing project disclosure while Eric scrambled to find somewhere to live. He had been eerily quiet since the night at my parents' house, avoiding me whenever possible and sleeping in the guest room. One evening, I returned home to find him sitting at the kitchen island, head in his hands. Rebecca, he started, his voice strained. We need to talk. I set my bag down and crossed my arms. What about? I think there's been a misunderstanding. His tone was different now, placating, almost sweet. The way he used to speak to me before Jessica. This whole situation has gotten out of hand. Has it? I leaned against the counter, curious to see where this was going. Jessica and it was a mistake. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. She seduced me. She pursued me relentlessly. I was weak, and I regret it more than anything. I almost laughed. So now you're the victim? No, that's not what I meant. He stood up, taking a step toward me. I've been thinking about everything you said. About the company, the house. I had no idea you were so successful, Becca. I'm proud of you. There it was. In one sentence, he revealed his true character. You're proud of me now that you know I'm wealthy, I clarified. Now that you realize what you're losing. He flinched. That's not fair. I always supported your career.
No, Eric.
You tolerated what you thought was a modest job while you spent my money and slept with my sister. I kept my voice level, refusing to give him the emotional reaction he was looking for. Did Jessica end things with you? His silence was all the confirmation I needed. Let me guess. When she found out I actually own everything, she suddenly lost interest in playing house with you. It's not like that, he insisted, but his eyes betrayed him. Look, we all made mistakes, but we can move past this. We can start over. I studied him, this man I once loved enough to marry. Now all I saw was a stranger who had shown me his true face. I already have my lawyer drafting the divorce papers, I said. You'll receive them by the end of the week. Becca, please. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. We can fix this. I know we can. I love you. No, you don't. I walked to the door of the kitchen. You love the lifestyle I provided. There's a difference. 2 days later, the story broke. Hartley Design Enterprises reveals hidden heiress AS CEO. Read the headline of the Business Journal. The article detailed how I had quietly taken over my grandmother's company 2 years ago, transforming it from a regional design firm into a national powerhouse with international clients. My photo, taken professionally for the press release, showed me standing confidently in the company headquarters, looking nothing like the meek wife my family thought they knew. My phone exploded with notifications. Former classmates, distant relatives, business associates I'd met under the guise of being just an employee, all suddenly wanting to reconnect. I ignored most of them. The calls from my family were harder to avoid. My father was first. Rebecca, why didn't you tell us? Your grandmother's company. We had no idea it was so successful. Would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have treated me differently if you'd known I was worth millions? His silence spoke volumes. My mother called next, her voice wavering between anger and confusion. Everyone is talking about you. The neighbors are friends at the club. They're asking how we didn't know our own daughter was some secret CEO. Maybe because you never asked, I replied. You were too busy comparing me to Jessica to notice what I was building. That's not fair, she protested weakly. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my work, Mom? Not my marriage, not when I was going to have children, but my actual work. She had no answer. Jessica didn't call. Instead, she showed up at my office unannounced, barging past my assistant before I could stop her. You planned this, she accused, slamming the door behind her. You wanted to humiliate me. I remained seated, watching her with detached curiosity. You faked a pregnancy to steal my husband, and somehow I'm the villain? You could have told us about the money, she hissed. All these years, pretending to be so ordinary while secretly running this empire. Would it have changed anything? Or would you have just tried to take this from me too? Her face contorted with anger. I can't believe how selfish you are. Mom and Dad are devastated. They feel betrayed. That's rich, coming from you. I stood up, finally meeting her eye to eye. You know what's interesting, Jessica? You're not even denying that you faked the pregnancy anymore. You're just angry that I outplayed you. For once in her life, Jessica had nothing to say. She stood there, opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. Eric came crawling back to me, by the way. I continued. The moment he realized what he was losing financially. I wonder if he tried to get back with you first? Her expression confirmed my suspicion. I thought so. I sat back down and returned to my work. You can see yourself out. This isn't over, she threatened, but her voice lacked conviction. I looked up one last time. Actually, it is. You both showed me exactly who you are. Consider it a gift. Now I'll never waste another minute wondering if I should keep either of you in my life. As the door closed behind her, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The secret was out. The masks were off. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to pretend to be less than I was to make others comfortable. That evening, as I drove home, to my home, I realized something profound. In trying to take what was mine, Jessica and Eric had inadvertently given me something invaluable, the freedom to finally be myself, without apology and without restraint. 6 months can change everything. As summer faded into fall, I watched the transformation of my life with a sense of calm satisfaction. The divorce was finalized with surprising speed. Eric's lawyer advised him to accept my terms without contest after reviewing the prenuptial agreement and financial disclosures. He walked away with only his personal belongings and a small settlement I offered not out of obligation, but so I would never have to see him again. Hartley Design Enterprises thrived in the spotlight. The publicity from revealing my role as CEO brought in a wave of new clients and partnership opportunities. We expanded into 3 new markets, opened a showroom in Chicago, and launched a sustainable design initiative that had been my grandmother's dream. I moved out of the house I had shared with Eric. Too many memories lingered in those walls. Instead, I purchased a lakefront property that I had designed myself, a place that reflected who I truly was without compromise. My relationship with my family evolved in ways I hadn't anticipated. My father, always impressed by success above all else, tried to forge a new connection with me. He called regularly, asking about the business, offering advice I never requested. I kept him at arm's length, civil but cautious. My mother took longer to adjust. At first, she tried to act as though nothing had changed, inviting me to family dinners where the elephant in the room, Jessica's betrayal, was studiously ignored. When I declined these invitations, she accused me of being unforgiving. Families fight, Rebecca, she said during one of our tense phone calls. But we're still family. Being family doesn't give you the right to hurt someone and expect automatic forgiveness, I replied. You chose Jessica's side before you knew any of the facts. That says everything about where I stand with you. Slowly, she began to understand that our relationship could only continue if she respected my boundaries. Our conversations became less frequent, but more genuine. For the first time, she listened when I spoke about my work, my dreams, my actual life. Jessica and I didn't speak at all. According to family gossip, which my Aunt Susan happily supplied, she had moved to a neighboring city after being unable to secure a job locally. The scandal of the fake pregnancy had followed her, tarnishing the golden image she had cultivated for so long. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy for her. Then I remembered how calculated her betrayal had been, and the feeling faded. Eric fared no better. He moved in with a college friend temporarily, then took a job in another state. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he often spoke bitterly about me, painting himself as the victim of a cold, calculating wife who had hidden her true nature from him. Few believed this narrative once the full story emerged. On a crisp October evening, I hosted a small gathering at my new home to celebrate the company's expansion. As I moved among my guests, colleagues, friends, and a few family members who had earned their invitations, I felt a contentment I had never known before. Ms. Hartley, a voice called from behind me. I turned to find Michael Chun, the architect who had consulted on my new home design. Please call me Rebecca, I reminded him with a smile. Rebecca, he amended, returning the smile. I just wanted to tell you how impressed I am with what you've done with Hartley Design. The sustainable initiative is revolutionary.
Thank you.
It was my grandmother's vision. I'm just bringing it to life.
You're doing much more than that, he said.
You're transforming the industry. We talked for over an hour about design philosophies, environmental impact, and the future of architecture. Not once did he mention my divorce or family drama, though I knew he must have heard about it. Instead, he saw me for who I was professionally, a peer, an innovator, someone worthy of respect on her own merits. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Aunt Susan pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, Rebecca," she said, squeezing my hand. "Margaret would be too." I smiled, thinking of my grandmother. "I hope so. She knew you had this in you, this strength. That's why she left everything to you." Susan glanced around the room. "And look what you've done with it. You've built something even greater than what she gave you." I couldn't have done it without her believing in me when no one else did. "That's not true," Susan countered. "You would have found your way eventually. Margaret just made the path a little easier." After the last guest departed, I stood on the deck overlooking the lake, watching moonlight dance across the water. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like mine, a space filled with possibilities rather than regrets. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Thank you for a wonderful evening. Would you be interested in continuing our conversation over dinner next week?" I smiled, typing back a simple yes. The old Rebecca might have hesitated, might have wondered if she was ready to trust again, might have worried what her family would think. But I wasn't that Rebecca anymore. The woman who stood in her place knew her own worth. She understood that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted opens the door to what you truly need. She had learned that the people who truly belong in your life are those who celebrate your strength rather than exploit your loyalty. I went back inside, closing the door on the past. Tomorrow would bring new projects, new challenges, new opportunities. For the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by my relationship to others as a wife, a daughter, a sister. I was simply Rebecca Hartley, exactly as I was meant to be. The company announcement had read, "Rebecca Hartley steps into the spotlight as CEO of Hartley Design Enterprises, continuing her grandmother's legacy while forging her own path forward." That's exactly what I had done. My sister had tried to steal my husband, never knowing I was the one with everything to give. In attempting to take what was mine, they had inadvertently set me free. Free from pretending to be less than I was, free from relationships built on false foundations, free to finally live authentically. It wasn't the life I had planned. It was better. As I prepared for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the mirror, shoulders back, head high, eyes clear. I recognized the woman looking back at me. She was stronger than I had ever given her credit for. She had weathered betrayal and emerged not just intact, but transformed. Some would call what happened to me a tragedy. I chose to see it differently. It wasn't the ending of my story. It was just the beginning.